Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the JACKOCAR Cup Series. Hope you all enjoyed the Championship 5 pre-show. But this is now the big event. It is our 7th Championship 5. We're here in Silverstone. I have made it, shockingly. They've pulled me out of the cupboard. I'm your commentator, Owen Wyatt. And as usual, for Championship 5 day, I will have two commentators beside me. One who's doing the tweets, and the other one who's still got his shares in JACKOCAR. It is Gareth Hall.
Sorry, who's this strange foreign voice that I'm listening to?
Is that racist?
Good evening.
How dare you?
Well,
this is why I'm resigning. These people, these English people.
Well, good evening, everyone.
I saw that anthem. I mean, that was pathetic from you lot. I mean, God, stop bowing down to it.
You should have seen it in real life. It was magnificent.
Must have been. Poor Yuri, that's who I feel sorry for.
The raw footage that exists from that day is going to go down in the annals of history. There are a few things that Mr. Shaw, and a massive thank you and well done to Ben Shaw for Iceman for getting that all sorted. But there's a few things that haven't been included that might go out in the recut that I'm looking forward to.
Yes, it looked like quite a fun day, that. Shockingly, I wasn't available to be there. So, if anyone's a bit confused as to who I am Owen Wyatt. I'm still here. I am still a part of this whole thing. I just happened to be completely absent in all of the build-up and all of last week and all the week before that. But, he's shown up for the big events. That's the main thing. The other man who's here, who was laughing a little bit, and does have his name in the title, and did have a really nice interview where he basically just sucked himself off for the whole time. It was, of course, Jack Ricketts, and he is here.
First of all, Owen, thanks for the reminder on who you are, because I totally forgot. I don't know if you've heard, but there's a new lead commentator in town.
I know, new lead commentator's coming in. It's only taken him 7 seasons to find a side. He fancies the job, but there you go.
And also, you mentioned the interview that I had with myself, basically. Yes. I do not remember that being as funny as that on the day. That was absolutely hilarious watching it back. One of the best things we've ever done. The crew chiefs were excellent. Driver intros excellent. Just nobody does it like JACKOCAR. It's Championship 5 night, boys. Are we excited?
I suppose. We've got two drivers. We've got two drivers here who could take their first ever championship tonight, and we also have the only 2-time champion in here as well. So we could see a three-peat, we could see a new champion, or we could see reigning champion take a second one in Kieran Spears. You know, there's plenty that can happen tonight. Although I've got a sneaking suspicion that Ben Shaw's not going to win it again, so he won't win his first tonight. Leroy's got a good chance, but if we're going to do predictions early, I'm going to do mine early. It's going to be Jake O'Sullivan, isn't it? He's just looked at him all season. So I'm going to be excited if anyone else doesn't win it, but I've got that feeling it's going to be Jake again.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through this. We did this in Saudi Arabia, didn't we? When we all voted everyone bar Jake. So yeah. I feel like if I put myself down to it's going to be the only one that we don't choose. So I mean, tentatively, I'm going to say Iceman breaks his duck, but I'm actually excited to see what the man that has finished 4th, I repeat, 4th in overall points, behind the fastest driver in team speed, Jamie Wright, can do tonight, because he has been, for all intents and purposes, absolutely crap for the majority of this season. He won his Joker out in his first race of the season, and since then he hasn't really turned up. I've done my usual stats for the C5. I've basically been sat at a computer for the last 3 days, and it's not pretty viewing for Jamie Wright, but I do think that he didn't even watch the build-up because he was sweating time trial so much. So it's disgusting, isn't it?
Come on.
That is cheating, that. But a couple of points on Jamie Wright. I hear he's so nervous he's not even in the ART party chat tonight where he normally is, and they discuss whatever. But also, you mentioned how crap he's been, Gareth. This is the first time in 7 seasons, well, technically 6 seasons because he wasn't full-time in season 1, that he hasn't won a race in the post-season. So he is ultimately crap, but we've seen people break form in the Championship 5. Look at Jake, who, by the way, I'm backing, along with Owen. Look at Jake in season 5 when he come to Saudi Arabia with like near enough 0 points and ended up winning the thing. So this Championship 5 night, anything can happen, but Ben Shaw will dearly love a first title, wouldn't he? Only in his 4th attempt. And don't forget this man, Owen Wyatt, Leroy Hazelagger.
Yes, I've got high hopes actually for Leroy tonight.
Do you?
Well, the thing is, right, he hasn't started it yet. So it'll be a very, very slow run-up to turn 1. And, well, we shall still take this as our lap on board around, even though we've already had one in the build-up. Slightly slow start and tentative through turn 1 and 2. And that'll be quite concerning for Leroy, that, if he's already got a loose rear end after just one outlap on those soft compound tyres. Of course, you've got 3 tyre choices in the grid, but I'm imagining you'll see most on the softs at some point. So it is a 2-stop, and the tyres last forever around here. As we get to the end of Sector 1, again, it just doesn't look particularly confident. Obviously, that moment out of the final corner will have affected him, and he will be about a second off the pace that he would be expecting, just due to the fact that he starts his lap 100 mile an hour, down on where he should be. Through towards Copse Corner. It's weird seeing this game now, having driven F123. If anyone hasn't tried the beta yet and you have access to it tomorrow, do give it a good go, because it's a hell of a lot better than this. But, well, they're making do with what they've got as we head through a section which is just miserable to watch. As end of Sector 2, 105A, again, nothing too fast, and towards Stowe Corner. I wonder how many are going to ignore the track limits through here tonight. If they can get away with it, Leroy stays well within it, and into the final chicane now. And doesn't lose the rear end this time, and he waited a little bit longer to put the throttle on for that reason. But Leroy's only at 29.8. He'll be lower down in the pecking order, but at least he has a lap on, because there'll be people who invalidate, people who make mistakes, and other stuff like that. But yeah, first time on the board anyway.
Yeah, and I think for Leroy, it's a case of he's not been the greatest qualifier this season. He's only got an average qualifying result of 9.8 throughout the entire season, so he doesn't tend to be up the front anyway. And for him, it's all about survival, I think, and picking his way through. It's what he's tended to do throughout the majority of this season. He's not really been overly consistent. If you could look at the stats throughout the majority of the season, he's of the Championship 5, of course, coming through the chase, you're always expecting him to have slightly worse results than everyone else. He's only had 5 top 5 finishes and only 2 times onto the podium, one of them being the win in Saudi Arabia. So 3 DNFs, an average race result finish of 8.8, so only really making up 1 position from quali. So a lot of work for him to do. His plus minus over the season from quali to the race results, he's only managed to pick up 1 place over the entire season.
Wow. Bloody hell, that's quite the stat, that. And that spin as well, that will 100% be nerves. Also, Gareth, I look forward to hearing you get all those stats out for the 4 drivers at the very end. The other 4 that we are just so happen to be focusing on. See how quickly you can talk then. But in the meantime, we will focus our attention on Jordan Lane. Of course, these colours are Sheffield Wednesday inspired, and he's put a little bit of gold on there, celebrating their promotion from League One. Classic Jordan. Going for Sheffield colours, but can he challenge Leroy's time? Of course, it is a benchmark. There's a very low benchmark because of that spin, which we won't bring up again. But into the final complex of corners then for Jordan, and he is, by the way, returning next season to the Cup Series as he goes P1. And also, if you watch the build-up, you'll see Corey Dalton is also coming back.
Yes, and it's worth putting out, by the way, with Leroy going first there. Of course, the Championship 5 runners get to decide their sort of spot. So that's Leroy putting all the pressure on himself to go first, losing out, and then obviously the rest of the Championship 5, surprisingly, not surprisingly at all, they're going right at the very end. The rest have their usual sort of decision making done by the Championship standings and points. So yeah, that explains. As we see OKK through that middle sector, looking good in the sunglasses in that Championship 5. He should be the new Bond, really, shouldn't he? He's got the look for it.
Double OKK.
Double OKK. I'm sure you felt really proud when he did that. He wasn't as proud when he made that mistake through Stowe, though, and that's what we were worrying about with the track limits, because it's a corner that we always see abused on the F1 game, because you should be able to get away with it, but this game it's not the same, and clearly it's caught OKK out. The start of the final race of what's frankly been his worst season, I would have said, in JACKOCAR. It's been absolutely miserable, unfortunately. And I'm sure he's just waiting for this to be over now, sadly.
Yeah, and well, he's picked up the most amount of time penalties over the entire season, 80 seconds worth over the entire season for OKK. So does compound it, as Risky's equally invalidated his lap. So the man that's only second behind Jake for most fastest laps this season is Sullivan Lewis. Unfortunately, he'll be starting at the back unless he's... did he invalidate his out? I think he's doing his third lap. I'll double check, but it looks as though he's still pushing.
Yeah.
But if it is a case, we'll go over it anyway. But Risky making his way down through Brooklands now in towards Luffield, and Sullivan, who has missed the majority of the season, only 46% of the completable laps have been done by him, but he has still, when he's been here, been a bit of a thorn in the side for many people. Some of the audio that was not added in was the driver intros, and I've referred to Sully as the rabid attack dog of Team Speed, and that's basically what we've deployed him as this season, is just go out there and just getting as many people's way and be as annoying as possible. And he's spun it coming into Chapel, and that will be him starting at the back as well.
Yeah, shall we move on to Pete, because Connor doesn't appear to be here. He's finally had enough. As Pete through Sector 1, he's got the Gulf colours on, and he is, he sadly finds himself in yet another Championship 5 as a former champion, the only former champion currently racing tonight, who's not part of this Championship 5, and again, he's probably another driver who's just praying for next season to come, really, isn't he?
I had the discussion with Pete the other day, actually. I was being taken back across the east part of the country to my own car by him, and we're having the chat about surely next season his time is coming. But I can't help but think to myself, how many times have I had that discussion with Pete? But maybe next season it is his time once again. He seems very confident, more confident than this spin at least. And wow. That's a big one. And whilst you two were talking just now, I was quietly confident that OKK was going to get a valid lap in, and he didn't. So never mind. We will move on to Jess Ball, who has been very consistent this season, Owen.
Yes, Jess, who's got her traditional colours on. She's got it in a slightly different configuration to what I'm used to seeing anyway. It looks a lot better this way. Hope she keeps that if this in any way able to do that design for the new F1 game. Although saying that, that is the new Connor Sport team, isn't it? Or whatever. Connor Sport, I think that's what it's called. Uses those colours, so she might actually have to find a new colour set. But either way, she's gone P3, slowest lap time so far, but only the third valid one we've had, and we've had quite a few drivers already, so they're struggling round here, which is surprising me, to be honest, as Michelle Gorry's heads round in a very nice looking livery.
Yeah, Michel making his way onto the hangar straight now, and DRS open for the final time of the lap, making his way towards Stowe, and a driver that could have made the Championship 5 through the chase. He's missed a couple of the late races, and that dropped him out of it. He's kind of just gone on as being a bit of a lapdog for Leroy, I think, in this one. He's going to help out his mate from the Netherlands. But what can he do around the final corner? Will he actually jump up in front of the pair of them? It's going to be close, but it is a 1:28.126. He goes provisionally onto pole position by 0.7 of a second.
And that's absolutely why he's getting moved up to Cup Series only next season, as is your wish, Mr. Hall, along with Yori. I'm sure this time next season you'll be saying it'll be me and Quinn that need to go up, because I'm hearing there's a little bit of domination on the way. Fingers crossed for that one. Ben Harrett has a qualifying ban because of a naughty, two naughty naughties actually. And then after him, we move on to Mike Kelterborn then. One pole, one win this season for the German. Back on form, it would seem, back to his season 1 form. But can he carry that into the new game? Again, like the 12 others in this race, he is purely just making up the numbers. But being one of those numbers, he's a bit like Risky Racer, isn't he? He will be a thorn in the side to anybody who is not quite a fan of. We'll try and make their championships, or their championship charges, a little bit of hell. He does invalidate, however, on the Exeter Cops. So that is enough of Mike for today, or for qualifying at least.
Yes, we'll catch up with him later on and hope it's going a wee bit better than that. I think he would have bitten your hand off, really, for a win and a pole this season. Sadly, it ended up just coming at the wrong time for him to win in particular, because it led to him being the first one knocked out of the championship. But it's still good progress, and hopefully we see improvement next season as we see Jamie Numbers, who's had another sort of disappointing season. I think we always sort of expect a bit more to come from him, and it never ends up materialising. Again, he went out, I think, the first stage of the playoffs, almost sort of anonymously. And, yeah, I'm hoping for improvement from him in Season 8. He could be a dark horse if he can pick up the new game well, because I do think he's got the potential. But, yeah, for the second season in a row in F1 22, it's just not quite worked out. And I think he'll be very happy to be driving his last race on it tonight as he heads through Stowe. Let's say we've seen a few go wide here and a few crash, but Jamie's kept it all facing in the right direction. This is, of course, where he got his victory, I want to say, last season, where he was fighting away with OKK through the final chicane, nearly fighting his own car through the chicane this time, and he only goes fifth fastest. I think there were some dramas earlier on in the lap because he is 8 seconds off the pace. And I think he's had a spin, has he? Oh, no, he hasn't.
Yeah, he must have done. These guys are clearly trying to help out the Championship 5 hopefuls because they are all getting out the way, like we saw in Kia on Tuesday night, where just no one wanted to set a valid lap in qualifying. But Kyle, who's been mighty over this season, just kind of missed out a couple of races. He does a 27.799, and Kyle, who could easily be in this Championship 5, but 2 on-the-grid disconnections in Imola and in Saudi Arabia effectively cost him the chance of some really solid points, so he'll be happy with that, puts himself back up there. And Kyle, who's actually got the third overall best average qualifying result of 5.8. So as I put in the group earlier, if there was a fantasy grid with all of the average qualifying, it would be Jake, then Ben, then Kyle, and then myself as your top 4.
And that's about the only way you'll get yourself back up in a championship.
Kyle knocked out in the round of 8 with you, Gareth, so you know how it feels to be eliminated at that stage. Obviously heartbreaking. But speaking of Kyle's dad, who will mention once again in a stream, this must be 4 weeks in a row now, you would have seen the new commentary lineups for next season. Kyle's dad, among those who'll be rotating on a tri-weekly basis, will be one of my co-commentators. Also involved is Danny Quint, Barry Baldwin, and Gareth Hall is joined by this man, Jori Hazelager, who's in the final sector now. Will he help his brother in lift-off? Because at the moment Leroy's lap is not looking too badly, not looking too bad despite how bad it was at the start of the session. Jori has a moment that will help his brother. No, maybe not. He'll go P3.
That's gonna break Leroy's soul, that, watching him have a horrendous final corner and just casually stick 1.3 seconds on him.
It would have been pole as well.
I know.
And that's why he's going to
that, though, to be fair, so thank God he isn't on pole. We have to worry about that a little bit more.
We should mention he's a 2-time champion, shouldn't we?
Well, I mean,
in Kia.
It'd be a bit embarrassing if he wasn't, wouldn't it?
Well,
I mean,
I hope he wasn't.
Should be at least a 4-time champion.
I know, it's already pretty pathetic, but
Casper to the line to complete his lap. He does his pole position. He goes to 27.771, takes pole position by 28 thousandths of a second ahead of Carl, the Red Dragon Racing former ART driver, moves himself up. And Casper, who is looking forward to getting rid of this game, he's been saying for a while. But, well, next up, we've got the big hitters. We've got Kieran and J-Luke on their laps.
Yeah, let's see how it'll be Jamie Wright coming first. Now, he's stuck a lot of gold onto his car, which is a bit unlike him, actually, isn't it? But, well, he's trying to get some sort of luck manifested. I do have a feeling he's slightly coming into this as an underdog, thanks to how bad his season's been. But, as Jacko says, first season so far in his career, where he's done a full season, where he hasn't won in the postseason. And he's only got one more chance to do that. Could he be saving his best for last? He's only gone third fastest at the moment, but we shall move on to Kieran Spears.
Kieran, by the way, getting a lovely toe off the back of Jori down the hanger straight there, so it should beat Jamie Wright, because his lap was a little bit underwhelming, if anything. He may only be 2 tenths off, but he just didn't look fully committed. So what can the reigning champion do? Up to the line, it's new pole position time, 1:27.2. That's a big gap. 2 more to go.
One of them being Iceman. And Iceman, who's on his lap, he's just coming up to Copse Corner now. And Ben Shaw, who of course broke the record for all-time poles in the JACKOCAR Cup Series and JACKOCAR in total, just about gets away with running out wide at Copse, but into the often replicated but never duplicated Maggots, Beckett's and Chappell through Aintree and onto the Hangar Straight. And, well, what can Ben do? He is looking for another pole position to add to his tally. He's already had, over the season, it's, well, 5 of them in total. So can he make it 6? He's got to stick with it. It's another one, much like Jamie Wright, not in the speed chat. He's got into his own one tonight. He just doesn't want the chatter, he said. But around the club corner, into the second version of Club 1 and Club 2, and that becomes only P2 at 27.6. Wow. Is that the toe that's given Ben only P2?
Well, that is a surprise to see Kieran so far ahead despite that moment in the final corner. It's all up to Jake then to see if he can topple the reigning champion, and he was not troubling the track limits at all there for Cops. I feel there was another tenth or two in there if he just properly sent it. Is he playing safe? Is he just putting a lap time on the board, be in the top 5 and work it from there? Middle sector split, it's all right. It's about on the pace of where Kieran was, and we know he had that moment in the final corner. So let's see if Jake can make it happen. Will he be conservative again through Stowe? The answer, absolutely. And into the final chicane then. Turns in a bit earlier than you would have hoped for. That will again make him a bit slower through there. Final corner, he's got the time to beat. I don't think he's going to do it. He just misses out. And that is going to be Kieran on pole. And as I said, he didn't give it everything on that lap. He left a little bit in reserve. It's earned him a front row spot, but it's only by 0.025 seconds. Kieran is on pole. He sent it. He got what he deserved.
That's Kieran's first pole position of the season, by the way. That's before tonight, only P2 was his best result. So he will be delighted with that. Jake in second and Iceman not too far behind, but J-Luke 6th. He's got a little bit of work to do there to get past. I'm sure Kyle will gracefully let him past, but Casper, we'll see if the old friends, if that sticks. But, well, the stats don't lie, do they? Leroy's average qualifying position over the season was 9.8. He lines up in 10th position. So he's got a little bit of work to do, starting right in the middle of the pack.
Yep, Kieran, by the way, Gareth, taking the words out of my mouth, that's the only stat I had was it was Kieran's first pole this season, so I will give you a replacement stat because I've nothing else to say at this time other than I hate you. 807 points have been scored between all the drivers, between the 5 championship drivers this season, and that is more than Arnold scored in his entire career. But I bring that up because Arnold is returning in season 8, which we're very much looking forward to. The big stat, however, to keep in mind as this race goes on, JACKOCAR has had 11 championship 5s. The last 9 have required a win to win the title. Owen Wyatt.
Yes, and the last Cup Series one anyway required a last lap pass to win it. It was a last lap battle. It was between Kieran and it was between Iceman, and yeah, there were penalties involved, but the point being, the move happened on track, and so they know what they're going to be in for tonight, and it's going to be a proper dogfight. Again, I mentioned Jamie Griffith's win here in Silverstone last season. That was the last 2 corners. He was fighting wheel to wheel with OKK, and so I'd be expecting a close finish here. I believe the season before last as well, we had, I want to say it was Jamie Wright and Kyle Smith as well, taking it right to the final few corners. So there's potential here for a properly good showdown here in Silverstone, and we're about to find out what tyres everyone is going to be starting on. I expect a lot will be on the softs because this is the sort of race where you just can sit on the mediums for most of it, or even do 2 soft stints because of the way the tyre wear is. So we'll see what they've done. Obviously, with 1 shot qualifying, you can save a lot of tyres, and as you can see, only 4 of the drivers on this grid are not starting on the softs, them being Iceman, Casper, Pete and OKK.
Yeah, interesting to see Ben going for the alternate strategy. So he is going for a longer first stint. Of course, no stages in the Championship 5. It is a straight run to the flag. And the one thing you need to know, everyone making mandatory 2 stops, but the nuance, of course, with the Championship 5 is that you do not need to win the race. Effectively, you could have the 5 protagonists, that is, for the ones that are watching, Speed Key, Catchman, Iceman, J-Luke and El Haslager. They could finish in 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th and whoever finishes in 13th will be your champion. So that shows that it can go literally anywhere, and it is all about consistency in this one. And I mean, Jacko just threw out his big stat. As I get out my
That's all I got, by the way. Go on.
Well, I'll just sit back and let you two compare sizes here.
Are we ready for some? We ready for some completely pointless and unnecessary stats, courtesy of Gareth? Right. So
up to Gareth.
most fastest laps. Here's an easy one. Jake takes 3. Least amount of accumulated time penalties at the checkered flag throughout the entire season is Kyle, who only picked up 3 seconds this entire season. So some 5 seconds he served in the pit lane, but in total only 3 seconds over the entire season in corner cutting. Most amount of pit stops over the entire season, Leroy 43. Behind him was Pete with 42. Leroy was the most, or the driver who was lapped the most over the entire season. He was lapped 5 times, or in 5 different races. Least amount of pit stops is Iceman with 29. The total amount of time penalties at the flag is 7 minutes and 46 seconds across the entire field, which is actually better.
Cup of tea at that time.
I know. Well, last season was 9 minutes and 30 seconds, so they've been a little bit better on the line this time around. If the average stop is 22 seconds, then in total the cars have been in the pit lane for 30 minutes and 54 seconds. I've got plenty more. I'll bring them to you later.
I think that's quite enough for now. So thank you for Gareth for showing me up. That's what I've got to try and match next season by myself. As we see Ben Harrett spin on the grid at the back there, and well, who knows what these drivers are feeling? We could see a new champion, we could see a double champion, we could see a 3-time champion. Owen White, time for those famous little words in JACKOCAR.
5 lights, here we go. It's a Challenger 5 for the 7th time in the Cup Series. And boogity boogity boogity, let's go racing. And it's a pretty wheel spin full start there for Kieran. He's going to get done on the inside of turn 1 straight away by Jake. It's a flat out turn 1. If the tires are cold, you're going to find yourself in trouble, but they seem to be getting through at the moment. All the Championship 5 contenders are still running, and Kieran trying to run outside of turn 3 and in towards the loop. That's a risky move to make so early on in a Championship 5 race, but they're going to hold it side by side. Jake holds on. Kieran's going to be into a slipstream. There is a yellow flag behind. Leroy is indeed around with Jess, and I noticed that Jamie Wright was losing a little bit of ground as well, but it is still going to be Jake O'Sullivan leading at the end of Sector 1. And, well, you can see it straight away. Kieran just did not get off the line in a flat-out turn 1. You just can't get away with that.
I was looking around, and Leroy, who had an absolutely shocking start to start with, he dropped down to 14th position by the time they got through turn 1. I think he was just being a little bit cautious going through the corner, but there was a huge lag spike in front of him, and I think he was caught out with, I'm not sure if it was OKK or if it was MK Bourne, one of the two of them. Leroy just, unfortunately, just effectively desync lagged into him, and that turned him round, and, well, Jess had nowhere else to go, straight into him, so that's front wing damage for Leroy, and I imagine a little bit of front end plate damage for Jess. It's not showing, but there was definitely heavy contact between the pair of them. The first lap is coming around. Kieran already on the back of Jake after losing that position down into turn 1. Kyle in P3. Iceman is now holding P4. Casper P5. J-Luke P6. Yellow flag is now out for MK
Michelle got race as well. It's all going off in that last chicane, and Michelle gonna spin into the path nearly of Pete and O'Keke. So that could have been a safety car if they came together, but luckily Michelle's missed everyone. But that's a horrendous couple of corners. Moving out of the way again for Leroy, and now Jamie Wright fighting against Casper. Now he's got these medium runners around him. He's got to get through them quickly, because eventually the advantage he has on these soft compound tires is going to run out. And it looks like he's not got the straight line speed, does it? Because Casper is going to just drive straight back past him. That was Jimmy Wright using his ERS there. Doesn't get overtaken into the corner, but that is something to look at for later on.
And remember, the legal pit stops can commence at the beginning, after lap 2 and after lap 13. So lap 3 and lap 14 is when you can expect the stops to commence. Or, if you're really brave, you can do both stops from lap 14 onwards. But looking at the start, as Jake retains the lead, Kieran still giving him a fight. Iceman having a poor start by his standards, but staying in with the window for the DRS, which will be active on the next lap.
So I'm keeping my eye on what the speed is like for Jake and for Kieran through Copse and Stowe. And certainly through Copse, actually, Jake was a hell of a lot quicker. So we seem to have a more stable looking car. And perhaps the sort of laid back approach he took in qualifying was just because he just flat out had more grip. And so perhaps not struggling as much as I thought he might have been in the race so far. But Kieran, as he heads through turn 1 and 2, looks like he's going to be within DRS range, and indeed he is. And so this will help him catch back up to Jake. But he certainly does seem to have some decent pace, does the Season 5 champion, being chased by the Season 6 champion.
Yeah, and I think for Iceman, the crucial thing now is he's just dropped outside of DRS, of course on the medium tyres, so we will have a little bit less grip compared to the guys on brand new spanking softs, but J-Luke now within DRS of him, so Ben was kind of hoping to be dragged along, and I imagine will be wanting these guys to box in as soon as possible so he can just stretch these mediums and just kind of get into a bit of a rhythm on his own behind MK Bourne with another spin. I think he's got rear wing damage after that contact with Leroy on the first lap, so he's already been spin twice.
Okay, big off. And is that going to be a safety car? Because he's taken himself completely out of the race. It is the first safety car of this season's Championship 5. And it's on lap 3, which means, of course, if you're on those soft compound tyres, do you take them off this early? As I said, the tyre wear is pretty good around here. And I have a feeling that these guys in softs, I don't see why they wouldn't want to take them off.
And do keep in mind as well, it's a risk that these C5 drivers may want to take, but you can pit under safety car and it be legal. Jake's going to do it, Kieran's going to do it, Kyle, but Iceman stays out.
Well, he's on the mediums.
Yeah, of course, but that's a safety car. He's made up his mind. He's going to keep that in his pocket for later on in the race, and maybe that'll bring him back into it. Remember the last 2 Championship 5s? He's dominated the early stage of the race, but only lost it late on both occasions. So a little bit of reverse strategy this time around for Ben, perhaps.
Now I'm looking at these guys in the pits of the Championship 5 runners. None of them have had to stack, which is always something you worry about. Of course, they were at the front of the grid anyway, so it's a very low chance they would have had to stack. But it is worth pointing out that it hadn't happened to any of them. And so Jake will come back out in 6th place. Decent spot. He'll be behind Ben Harrett, who probably has a good bit of fight in him, actually, and Pete Knighton. So maybe not the 2 drivers you'd actually want to see in front of you. And even Yuri up ahead of that. He'd be, I'm sure, doing everything in his power to somehow get his brother back into the championship, having seen him fall right to the back earlier on. Of course, this safety car puts him on the back of the pack again, so it's never over till it's over. As, of course, the Speedway race last week showed us, although that was a little bit manipulated. But we'll not go into that.
What are you on about? It's a JACKOCAR.
Point is...
How's it manipulated? Tell me.
Well, only a slight bit of, you know... what was it called? Stage cautions? I forget what it was. We had a very late
competition caution.
That's what it is. Yeah, we don't have that
this
this
week. Which is a real life thing.
I know, but my point is we don't have that. I know, my point is we don't have that this week. So Yuri's going to have to do a little bit more work to get the driver from the back to the front.
Well, you say that, but Yuri is also harbouring a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car that came out immediately, so he will have to. That's why he didn't box off the softs. He can't serve that until the safety cars come in, so there's no point coming in and getting those tyres changed. So he is going to, I imagine, stick out there and perhaps try and be a bit of a blocker for the likes of Jake, who's only 3 positions behind him, because of course you've got Ben Spurs, I'm sure will let Jake go, and then you've got Pete and Yuri are now the rear gunners for Iceman on his medium tyres. So Risky equally picked up a 5-second speeding into pit lane, and so did MK Bourne, so they'll have to serve that at their second mandatories. And you know, safety cars out. Did you know how many we've had this season? We've had 35 of them, 35 safety cars, which is 5 less than Kia. And Kia have had how many less races? Like 6 less races. We've had 16 VSCs. Did you know, this was a painful one to collate, 265 yellow flags over the entire season.
Is that it?
Yeah, I know. I thought we'd have a little bit more than that, but 265. We've had 108 laps behind the safety car. That's 20.37% of the entire season has been behind the safety car, which is actually down from last season, whereas at 26.3%. So a little bit less time behind the safety car. We only had 2 intermediate qualies and 1 dry to wet quali. That was the first race of the season in China. Total laps has been 530. Total pit stops over the entire season for everyone, 672 of them, of which 104 ended up with a speeding into that pit lane. So almost 1 in 6 people coming into the pit lane over the season did it a little bit too quickly. Don't worry, more to come at the next safety car.
You can see where all the grey hairs are coming from, can't you?
How long? How many pages? How many A4 pages have you wrote this season? Because I swear it was 3 or 4 from Miami, wasn't it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages for this one.
Do you want a job?
6 pages. It's actually 6 pages, and then I've got 2 pages on Silverstone itself, and a spreadsheet with 2 spreadsheets with the entire results, everyone's pit stops, penalties, their gains, their losses, the fastest laps, the biggest movers, quali results, race results. What else have we got here? Quali weather. We've got that as well. How many laps in the... Yeah, we got it all.
Oh, yes, because we'll need that one for the next safety car period. You keep that one to yourself for now.
Look, when you commentate on Kia, you have a lot of time under the safety car. You realise you need to fill air.
Fair enough. But anyway, Aaron White is about to get us restarted. The restart zone is just here, actually, so but Iceman can get going whenever he wants.
Yes, and he'll want to make sure he doesn't floor it too early so he doesn't lose it out of the final corner. And indeed he hasn't managed to do that. Of course, it's flat out all the way to turn 3, so if you get into a good tow, there is a potential for a dive bomb. Maybe not now, but think about it later on in the race. Although saying that, we do have a lot of cars spreading out, and already Yuri going up the inside of Casper. And again, he's got the softer tyres. He probably still has more grip on them, like I say, because of the tyre wear being so low. So it's a nicely done move. Bit of contact there between Jake and Pete, and again on the back straight. Where's Kieran? Kieran's going past. Kieran, this is for the championship. Very early on, of course, but he's taking advantage. And Jake, who nearly got punted out of the race entirely, now has to re-overtake Kieran if he wants to win this championship. All the time this is happening, Iceman is pulling away out front. That's where he's at home, and hopefully he'll be able to make a good few seconds gap before he makes his first pit stop. Now, how is Jake going to react to being behind Kieran? Because we saw on the start, he was happy to fight him hard.
Yeah, just looking at the races that's unfolded, obviously we've got the Championship 5 that we will be focusing on behind Ben Harrett. An absolute shocking restart there. He had to basically went grass tracking across the first corner at Abbey, so he got a heap of heat into those tyres, and he dropped all the way down from I think it was P5. He's now down in P10 and was swallowed up by those around him, one of them being J. Luke, who's down in 9th position, but there's Casper, who's trying to go side by side and in fact tags Yuri. But the pair of them still side by side. MK Bourne gets 3 seconds as Casper almost pushing Yuri, whose tyres will now starting to be going off. And he is, you can see, leaving that gap 1.7, 1.8 seconds. As gosh, that was close.
What a save.
And Yuri is going to have to watch out because he's now got Kyle that's gone round the outs of him.
Off goes Jake.
There goes Jake.
Big spin. And he was all over the back of Kieran. And he's losing so much time. He's even behind Leroy now. And that is a catastrophic mistake. And so unlike Jake. But he's fallen down. Oh, another accident on the back straight. And that one is Jamie and I want to say Pete. Jamie Griffiths, I should say. Another safety car, unsurprisingly. Will Iceman pit this time? I wonder. I don't know how that's happened. An accident in the back straight. We often don't see it happening like that. Is that cars just coming across each other at the wrong time? Obviously, there was a lot going on. And, wow. It's so out of character.
He's got a rear right puncture. It looks like. Is that rear right puncture? He's not going anywhere, which means he's probably got a front puncture as well. Yeah, and he's done.
Indeed, so front left looks like it's punctured on there. So.
End of the season pretty much sums up Pete's season there, does that? As not really going anywhere, unfortunately. As Ben Harrett drops out as well, he'll need to rejoin. He's up in P7, so he recovered a little bit of positions after that chaos. But
Jimmy Griffiths is not happy.
Well, yeah, that restart lap, I was kind of skimming up and down through the field, and there was a lot of rubbing after that. As Yuri picks up a time penalty going in.
On top of the drive-through as well, which he still can't take.
He's racking them up. As into the box does come a couple of drivers. Yuri's in, he knows he needs to get off those soft tyres. Ben Harriet's AI sticks him out, so he's going to be really suffering late on. Only 7 laps into this one, plenty of, well, not even, a third of the way in, and we've got our is this our second safety car or third safety car? So we're gearing it up tonight, and we're looking at this as Jake has now got a lot of work to do. He's behind Leroy, so you thought that Leroy had a bad start. He's now behind Leroy, so it's Iceman who will be pretty gutted with that, actually, because he had a 2-second advantage that Yuri had given him by holding up the rest of the pack. Casper in P2, Kieran now up in P3. Kieran's got a potential here of going back to back, which is something that no one wants, but in P3, J Luke's still in there in P5, but I wouldn't count out both Jake and Leroy. P8 and 9, it's not out of the question. If safety cars are going to come out of this this frequently, you'll see that potentially you might have people cycling up towards the front a little bit later on. Just a few stats about some of the drivers in the C5.
Oh, go on then, why not?
Well, Jake O'Sullivan, number 40, took pole on a 6-race streak from Monaco to Saudi Arabia. He missed Mexico and then got pole in Monza, so had he been here, he could have potentially had almost 8 poles in a row. He's the only C5 driver to have a negative plus-minus of gains and losses from quali to race result over the entire season. -2 over the entire season from Jake, from his quali results to his race results. Everyone else in the pluses. You look at through some of the others, it's you've got, of course, the only where have we got? I'm just flicking through my many pages just to fill some time. We can actually, whilst we've got time, Jacko, we can recall Kieran's naughty naughties. How many race wins do we think Kieran could have had if he'd actually just followed the rules?
It's not so much wins. I mean, I think it's 2, to be totally honest with you, but it's more points that he lost. If he had not been disqualified or not gotten penalties in the postseason, he would have made the Championship 5 cut ahead of Jake and ahead of Ben in the round of 8, the first race of the round of 8. Instead, he had to do it all in the last race. It all come down to Paul Ricard in France, and just scraped through, didn't he, if it wasn't for Yuri and Casper having their own issues. Obviously, Casper ended up in a wall and Yuri ended up P14 and doing donuts on the line. But yeah, Kieran, very much a man who likes the late show, doesn't he? He tunes in every week. I'm joking. He won in Miami, obviously very late on. He took a late win in Mexico the season before to get into the Championship 5. Sorry, you like that? Sorry.
No, I just enjoyed... MK Bourne has just absolutely hooned into the back of Risky as they came down into Brooklands. Just wasn't paying attention, and that will be rear wing damage for Risky, and it's front wing damage for Mike.
Okay, I shall continue. But yeah, basically, Kieran does show up late in the season. What I don't know too much about is why Iceman is still out. He has a safety car stop in his pocket, and everyone else has done 1 stop. In the event that we don't get another safety car, he's a whole stop down. Figure that one out.
Well, I suppose he'll at least have the soft tire. It'll be 2 stints on the soft tyres, won't it? But at least he'll have, I suppose, a bit more grip on them if he leaves it longer for the first stop. Although I do agree it's a bit of an odd decision not getting out of the way. I think he's got the pace to get through the pack. And obviously Casper, I suppose, as a rear gunner who also has to pit, he might have a little bit of a chance. But I just want to go back to what I said about Jake earlier, saying his spin was so unlike him. Of course, it was a little bit similar. In fact, it was exactly similar to what he did in Season 5's Challenger 5, where about 4 corners into the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, he was facing the pack, and he went on to win the race and the championship. So yeah, do not count him out. Even though he is last of the current Championship 5 runners in the race, he has got time. Now, restarting. Iceman leaves it a little bit later this time, and Casper's nearly into the back of him. And I don't think that was a good restart at all from him, because it's going to let Kieran and Jake, who's made 3 places in 1 go, wow, make their way up through the field. Yuri has been disqualified because he never had a chance to take his drive-through penalty. Round the outside goes Kieran, all the way up into 2nd place by the looks of it. And now I can see his speed teammate in front of him, the man he fought wheel to wheel for the championship last season. Jake and Leroy, 5th and 6th now, so that's a good restart for them two. They're certainly back in this. And Jamie Wright, look at what he got left behind, down in 8th place. And look at that, straight up into 4th now. Jake is flying here, and he's straight back into the fight. And yes, indeed, Kyle would have let him go. ART teammates, you would expect that, but the point is he can now see his main man just 2 cars in front of him once again, so this is still very much on.
Yeah, and the real loser in all that was J-Luke. Jamie Wright, now down to 8th position, got swallowed by Leroy and Jordan on either side of him at the restart. They were 3 wide into the first corner. J-Luke got out of the throttle, as he should have done, and that allowed Leroy up through, and J-Luke's now got to get past Jordan, and there's no mean feat. Jordan, he's missed a couple of races, but he is very quick on his day. He can be right up the field, so he's not going to be making it easy for James to go past. Of course, he's ERT, not ART. He's got a little bit of backup coming in the ways of Arnell and Corey next season. But yeah, as you say, Iceman does come in. Jamie goes down the inside of Jordan, so he's going to get that position back up into, 8th becomes 5th, because of course he goes past Iceman and Casper, who come in off those medium tyres. So yeah, as you say, strange decision for Iceman to not utilise that second safety car, but he clearly thought a double soft stint wasn't going to get to the end that early on.
Well, he's going on to them now, though. I don't really see how much where he would have got on if he had just pitted under the safety car. I do still agree with Jacko here. He should have done that. Although perhaps he would rather have the free air so he doesn't get involved in an accident. But of course, that comes with a caveat that he's now 20 seconds behind the race leader. But
the thing is, he now needs, I'm not saying he's slow, but he needs a safety car. Because to catch up 20 odd seconds in, what is it, 13 laps? Sorry, 15
16
laps. Awful maths. 16 laps. That's a big ask. That is a huge ask for Iceman. I think he's made an error here, unless we get a safety car.
I think the upside for Ben here is his only saving grace if we do get another safety car, that everyone else has used their safety car stop early on, and then the second safety car nullified it. So if it does come out, then effectively he'll be almost a pit stop ahead of everyone else. So he's playing the risk versus reward game, as Jake is now right on the back of Kieran, and that gap's now to 0.3 of a second. So Jake, after that incident that got him off onto the grass and dropped him down to 10th position, well, in 3.5 laps he's now found himself back up into P2, exactly where he was when he first had the incident.
Yes, and DRS will now be enabled on this lap, and so we're about to see these two go wheel to wheel once again. Kyle just waited in tow. Don't expect him to launch any sort of massive attack, obviously, on Jake, but the second Kieran becomes available, I'm sure he might stick his nose in. Leroy just outside of the DRS range, I think. I'll get confirmation for that, but I believe indeed he is not going to get the DRS, and he's had a bit of a moment out of 4 and another one out of 5. So there goes Jamie Wright through, and that's a second spin tonight, or well, a third spin tonight now, for Leroy, and well, that could be him falling out of contention. But like I say, you never know what's going to happen, but that felt like a really avoidable mistake, and well, it's cost him down to 9th place, so back to where he was when the safety car was deployed earlier on. Now, through cops, it still definitely looks like Jake has the genuine pace, so Kieran is going to have to get his elbows out. We know he can do that, we've seen him do it against Jake, but well, I think the gloves really will have to come off here, you know.
He's just so... I love watching on boards with Jake. He's so smooth around every corner. Kieran was really fighting the car, especially through Chapel, and he's still going toe-to-toe with him, and you know that Kieran's not going to give this one up. Will he send it down the inside? Oh, no, he's actually thought about it this time and thought he's better off saving himself to fight another day, but... he's going to get there. You can look how much Kieran is almost soaring at the wheel. It's almost like it's Kaya-like as he goes round Club 2. But into Abby, and he's now back on Jake. But what will Jake do now? He's being attacked with DRS from Kieran. There we go. I've got Kaya in my head.
You'll get there.
Yeah. As we've got Kieran now on the back of him, but Kyle within 0.7. J-Luke now back in within 2 seconds of the lead. So J-Luke not out of it. Iceman fastest lap of the race, as he should do. Brand new softs for him. Kieran unable to get within striking distance. He was about 6/10 of a second. You need to be around about 5 to 4/10 to get that move into Brooklands. And he is using a little bit of battery here just to try and stay with Jake. But I think if Jake just keeps doing what he's doing, he'll just naturally and gradually pull away from Kieran, who's always said that he's not a massive fan of driving around Silverstone. I
agree. I think Jake is naturally the quicker driver here, although he has used a little bit more ERS, as you say. But we'll see what happens as Leroy gets himself back past Jess. I still think, like I say, safety cars needed to get him and Iceman, frankly, back into this. But yeah, Kieran uses a bit of the ERS, pulls out of DRS range of Kyle, who now will have Jamie, well, probably letting him through, into third place. Can the 2-time champion close in and make it 3? He's got it in front of him. We've seen him in this position before. Penalties have got in the way, controversies have got in the way, but he always seems to find a way to get to the front, does Jimmy Wright. So even though he's not in DRS range yet, if these front two start to fight a little bit more later on, definitely expect Jimmy to be there picking up the pieces.
And at the end of this lap, the second mandatory stops can be made by all the drivers. So obviously you expect Kieran and Jake to either follow each other inside of a lap of one another. Will there be an overcut or an undercut? What is the best way around here? But Jamie Wright, that gap is 2.5 seconds, but he has been working on it the last stint. I do fear for Leroy. I just wonder if he has any potential damage underneath him with the spins that he's had, and an Iceman on his super alternate strategy down in P11. As you say, Owen, he needs that safety car, I think, because we are running out of laps as we approach the halfway mark. We're over the halfway mark. 13 to go.
So, again, Kieran will just be within DRS range. He has a little bit more ERS than Jake, but it's not a massive difference. It's not really going to be relevant either until the end of the race. And they'll be thinking about their final pit stops. Obviously, that pit window opened a couple of laps ago. But I just wonder, as you say, if it's going to be now. And in fact, it is now for Jake. And I fear that's too early. I fear that's a pit stop for mediums and not for softs. And I have a feeling that Kieran, will he try and go for softs now? He's going to stay a bit longer. Like I said, they'll have the softs there because they only did one qualifying lap. So this is not actually really what I expected. I thought there'd be a few more doing what I assume Iceman is doing and doing 2 soft stints. But indeed, it is mediums for Jake, mediums for Jamie Wright. So Iceman's in as well. Are they all going to go for mediums then? Am I the one who's completely misjudged it, I wonder? But
they're handing Kieran the title, that's what it is.
Well, it could be.
Hopefully
because
not. Fingers crossed not.
Well, that's nice. But, you know, I can't be the only one who thinks there's a chance for this to go to softs at the end. No?
That's a fascinating call from Iceman. I'd love to hear his thought process after this, to only do 3 laps on the softs to now back onto the mediums. He's now effectively in P12 regardless of what happens. He's made his second mandatory, so I think he's the only driver to make both mandatories under green flag conditions. So
correct.
Yeah, so P12 for him. So a strange call from Ben. I would have perhaps stuck it out for a couple more laps and just tried to see if something else does happen. But of course, we've got a little bit of field spread now, so perhaps he thought there wasn't quite going to be the chaos that we saw at the restart and the start of this one. So yeah, Kaya. Oh my God, Kieran
is
it's because I was just talking to Kaya in the chat. That's why, because he's making no sense. But Ben Harrington P2, and then we've got. We've got Michel Goris out of position in P3, Jess out of position in P4. Casper is another one that has got to make another stop as well. But Jake on those mediums clearly thinks that he's going to get the undercut here because Kieran's in. He's made his stop. Now, what was Jake's out lap compared to Kieran's in lap?
Well, we're about to find out, but it seems no one's going to go for that second soft stint. Of course, if we get a late safety car, it's at that point where you'd be able to pit for them if you haven't done a pit stop under safety car, which is perhaps what Iceman will do. Although it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Because of his mandatories being completed. But there goes Kieran, back onto the track. The tyres will be cold, and Jake will be within DRS range. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he blasts past on the back straight, because it looks like the undercut's worked, but I just think with the natural grip or the overcuts work, sorry, but the natural grip will make the undercut still work out better, as there goes Jake through, and I just don't think Kieran's going to have the grip to fight this until possibly the end of the lap. But for now, Jake has track position again. Jamie Wright has lost time to both of them. And another factor in this race that we haven't talked about yet, look at all the black clouds that have appeared up in the air. I wonder if there's possibly a chance of rain, although that would possibly have even promoted people staying out or going for a set of softs or something, so maybe the rain won't affect, but it is worth noting that the clouds are appearing.
Yeah, just
at the moment.
Go on, Jacko. Go on, I jumped over you.
At the moment, you got 3 former champions all fighting through the last couple sectors here in Silverstone. Kieran, Jamie Wright, who is being overtaken by Kyle, and of course, what was I trying to say? Jake. I forgot all 3 of their names. You should have taken over, Gareth. But yeah, 3 champions on track, all fighting in a row. But here comes the safety car that Iceman needs, is it?
Well, he's lost his front wing, his MK Born, as he hits the wall. It's going to be his M plate though, so I won't believe that'll put anything out.
It's way off circuit, so he's lost it coming around Cops Corner.
Penalty for Jamie Wright.
For Jamie. Orange rear wing for MK Bourne, he said earlier. So orange rear wing, so he's basically crawling around much like Matt Lester did and Keir in their championship 5 around Australia. So he's just trying to get to the end. That 3 seconds for Jamie, well, that could call curtains because he's still got Kieran and Jake in front of him. A lot of work to do, however, because Kieran still with Jake. Jake, however, now 2/10 of a second behind Casper, and will be getting caught out and stuck behind him.
He had to back off.
Yeah, you've got to think because there's the retirement, but it's in the pit lane. Oh, Jacko got so excited. Talk about blowing your load early.
You wait for next season when I can bring out the red flag at the push of a button, man. It'd be called now.
You need the full iRacing experience of having a race director.
Look
but
at
here
it.
comes the double train, because Kieran's going to get a double toe off both Jake and Casper. He's on the button. Jake needs to get this move done now, because Casper, yeah, he's going to go for the switchback, so he does that. Is Casper going to cut across and try to get into the pit lane? No, he's going to go back on the offensive. Kieran's going to send it. That's got F1 contact physics written over it, and Casper actually does the decent thing and gets out of the throttle thinking, not my fight.
That was terrific driving that from Casper to see Kieran steaming up the inside, because he just about left the car's width, and I swear there's other drivers out there that would have just turned into that corner normally, and that could have been tears. But they've both made it through, Jake and Kieran, well, he certainly gave it his best shot of trying to take advantage and nick a position off of Jake, but I do feel like he's going to have to rely on a mistake at this point, or a penalty, because I just don't think Kieran has the pace at the minute to make it a back-to-back championship. But well, there's still a few laps left, so things can still happen. But it does feel as it's starting to take shape.
I'm sure somewhere Gareth will have a stat with a list of all of Jake's mistakes this season. Obviously, the one we saw a few laps ago, and maybe Mexico just the entire race. But other than that, I don't think he's put a foot wrong all season, has he? Gareth, have you got that?
Was Imola? Was it him and Imola on the last lap?
It was he had a 5-second time penalty, 8 seconds of time penalties in Imola, which dropped him down from what would have been P1 down to P7. But apart, yeah, like you say, he's finished 493 of 530 laps. He missed the entirety of the Mexico Grand Prix, so there is the majority of the rest of that. The only retirement he had was from P4, and that was on the final lap of the Dutch Grand Prix, where he hit a stranded Jess. So he has, when he's raced, he's completed all but, well, effectively about half a lap. He's picked up 23 seconds of time penalties over the entire season, most of those coming in 2 races, one of them being Imola. Another one was another one of the street tracks, I believe, earlier in the season. 10 top 5s, 10 top 3s. When he's finished in the top 5, he's finished on the podium, 8 pole positions. And I've got here rivalries. Kieran and Ben Shaw. Well, he's got one of them for close company with the younger one, the one that no one wants to win, currently sitting in P3.
Ain't that the truth? Owen Wyatt.
Well, I mean, I personally don't mind him, but Well, we'll see.
Similar
we'll
age,
see.
That's what it is.
It's not that similar.
DTS fans, that's all I'm hearing.
Whatever. Here comes Kieran through the S's as the clouds continue to cover the track. It certainly has become fully overcast now, and there's still going to be 7 laps to go at the end of this one. Kieran has got similar ERS levels to Jake, so in theory he does have the advantage just through DRS, but he wasn't closing much with the DRS, and it's not like either of them were using that energy, which does sort of make me again think that Kieran's got the edge in the corners somewhat, but on the straight there's nothing he can do, which is why I'm saying he needs a slide out of a corner for Jake to give him a chance or a penalty. But even then I can just see Jake steaming straight back past him. But if it rains, anything can happen. And maybe that's why they're on the medium compound tyres. Maybe it's going to be a very late shower and you want to have some tyre life if any rain does come, because the whole field now is on to the medium compound of tyre. Casper making his last stop. He was out of sequence, that's why he's pitting only now. And yeah, Kieran, I mean, he's pulled away very nicely from Kyle and Jamie Wright. Of course, Jamie Wright has the penalty, so it makes it difficult for him anyway. But it certainly does feel now that unless there's a late race safety car, this is a 2-horse race for the championship.
Yep, and unless there is one of them, it's slipping away for Ben and Leroy and Jamie Wright, who has fallen behind Kyle, and Kyle himself has fallen away from the back of Kieran and Catchman, who are on another league of their own at the moment. So if one of those wins a title, we are looking at a new 2-time champion. But here comes Kieran in the DRS once again.
Yeah, Kieran coming down the hanger straight, not quite close enough once again, and his tyre temps, his fronts are a little bit higher than Jake's up in P2 as well. And well, Ben Harrett into the box, so that will release Jake back out into the lead. This one, Kieran and P2 will become, as they go past the white car of Ben Spurs 96, that will promote up Kyle and Jamie. And Jamie, who's used a lot of battery.
I look like a wee slide there for turn 1 for Jake. Maybe he is feeling a little bit of the pressure. I'm surprised he didn't end up losing it there.
I think that the track temperature is dipping with this overcast weather, because the rear tyres for Kieran have dropped 2 degrees in the last 2 laps. So, like you say, we've been noting that the clouds are looking dark as Leroy picks up 3 seconds. So that might pretty much call complete quits to his challenge tonight. But we might see a late sprinkling. But if that is the case, then that is another strange call for Iceman for perhaps thinking that. He couldn't stretch those tyres out into a late stint, and perhaps if the inters are going to come, of course we don't know, we haven't found out from anyone, but it is still Jake from Kieran. Kyle, Jay looked risky having a solid run up in P5 as well. Jordan, Ben Harrett out on brand new softs in P7, but 7 seconds of a gap between them, so it looks as though it will be a pretty jumbled up top 5 here, but Kieran's still sitting just out of reach of Jake.
Kieran and Jake as well, with their history over the course of this season. We think back to Spa and Saudi Arabia. How much is Kieran willing to risk it? Of course, Bump and Brum will be very much on his mind on the final lap, won't it? But can he get close enough? That's the question. Jake, even though the gap is small, has him covered, doesn't he? Because as you say, Owen, he is faster on the straights at the moment, is Jake O'Sullivan.
Yeah, he's got that couple more tenths as well now in the last few laps. He's just sitting at that 5-6 tenths. Yeah, you'd be feeling fully comfortable if you're Jake right now, just focusing on not extending track limits. He's been doing it since the start of qualifying. We saw it through Carlson, through Stowe. He wasn't troubling the limits. He's driving a very safe race at the minute. And even though Kieran is setting decent sectors, I think Jake, it feels like he's just put the hammer down a little bit and is somehow just finding more pace. Obviously the tyres don't really degrade around here, which is why they're able to be so consistent, but it just feels like Jake is preparing to actually just pull away, possibly even out of DRS range soon. Because, yeah, you look at him, he's using his DRS a little bit more on his lap. He stretched his legs a wee bit, and it's just possibly killing any last hope that Kieran has. Unless, of course, there's a mistake. But he's not going to win it on pace as Kieran. No chance. Jake's on a lap which is nearly 4 tenths quicker than his previous best. And I mean, Kieran just doesn't have an answer.
Is that Jamie Wright?
It's Jimmy Wright, yeah. Jimmy Wright, he was already struggling, is now even further behind. Doesn't lose him a track position, but it does just drop him a little bit out of reach of the championship by the looks of it today. Jake crosses the line to set, that time 3.5 tenths quicker than his previous best. He still has more ERS than Kieran, so he had to use a bit more there, Kieran, to keep up. And it just doesn't look like it's going to happen for him, I don't think. I want to try and be all excited and say, oh, we're going to like a last lap move or something, but I just don't know where Kieran's meant to pull that pace from.
I mean, I've looked into the race director, and I feel like it would be telling to spoil what it looks like from that point of view for the viewers watching at home. So we'll let it play out, but I'm just going to say everything could still change. So stick around for the final 4 laps of this one, 3.5 laps of this one. And of course, if you're watching at home and you're enjoying it, make sure you press the like button on the video. It really does help us out. And subscribe if you're new to JACKOCAR. We've had a couple of people in the comments wanting to know how they can get involved. And if you're new and you're enjoying it, make sure you do subscribe and go to @JACKOCAR on Twitter, @JACKOCAR2. That's number 2 on Twitter for the Kia series. That is the tier below. They had their Championship 5 on Tuesday. You can watch that back live here on the channel. But 23 or 26 done, and Jake is just keeping Kieran at arm's length now. As Kieran's trying to, he gives it a little bit of a squirt of push to pass every now and then, but it's just not quite clever. I think Jake is relatively comfortable about where he is at the moment. Kyle 8.5 seconds behind. J-Luke now no man's land, with Risky picking up a penalty as well. Jordan having a solid race in P6. Leroy back there as well. Iceman, oh, he's going to be, once again, it looks as though it's going to be another season with nothing to leave with. He's the Tottenham of JACKOCAR, isn't he? As Iceman. He's going to leave with nothing. He didn't even get a regular season to take home with him this time around. But down in P9, fighting with Ben Harriott in P8. But 24 of 26, and it's Jake by 8 tenths of a second.
Yeah, I'll never fully understand what Ben has done here. And of course we're now at the stage where it's just too late for a safety car, so that is championship over, I would say, for Iceman. I'd also say for Leroy, maybe Jamie Wright sniffs a chance if Kieran and Jake tangle, but it's looking like it's going to be one of the front two. But that gap increasing and increasing and increasing all the time as we head round Copse Corner. It's nearly a second, although Kieran giving it a little bit more through there. He is better through the corners, remember. But we're looking at 2 and a bit to go here in Silverstone. It's been a brilliant day, build up, live music, hilarious sketch which will return next season, and of course double OKK. But it's going to be between Jake and Kieran for the Season 7 Championship 5. Owen Wyatt.
We've seen it before, obviously, as well, on this game, where last lap changes happen, so do stick around. Although if Jake manages to lose it from here after the season he's had, I don't think he'll ever forgive himself, because, I mean, me and Gareth came in, we came straight away and said he's the favourite. You couldn't really look at anyone else for it. He's no longer the underdog that he was in Saudi Arabia Season 5, and we saw how he took control of that. And ever since then, he's looked like, you know, every bit of championship driver that he is. And he's proven once again that he's got the skills. Yellow flag is out, but again, I believe it's too late for it to make any sort of difference. Kieran has pulled back a couple of tenths, so he is giving it a proper go, as you would expect. And I mean, we'll see, because 40% ERS with a DRS zone. Oh, he's using it now out of DRS zones, isn't he, Kieran? So he's not going to give himself much firepower when he actually gets onto the straights. But
they've both got 30.
He's just trying, isn't he, to put Jake under any pressure. You know, see that red arrow popping up. Maybe he'll go a bit late on the brakes into the final chicane and just show him he's there and just try and put him off. Not dive bomb him and try and take him off or anything, but just put his nose in and get him on the radar. And you can see the closing speed for the back straight. It's not bad. If he's like that Chapel 3 tenths behind in the final lap, it's an opportunity, but he needs to make it happen.
It's crazy to think that just 2 seasons ago, Jake took his first ever win in JACKOCAR in the Championship 5 with that absolutely superb move down the inside through the middle of two of his protagonists, and now he's become one of the titans, one of the ones to beat here. And with Arnold and Corey returning next season, it's shaping up the next season. It's going to be the quickest that we've had it. It's going to be unbelievable. I mean, you've got the likes of Iceman, you've got Cashman, you've got J-Luke, you've got Kieran, you've got Corey, you've got Arnold, you've got Speed _ Gareth 89 in there. I mean, you've just got just some. You've got the real big hitters, and then of course you've got your Leroys and your Yuris and those that can get up there. And Ben Harriet, of course, who's taken
Kieran's
the most.
Kieran's looking. That was a good corner.
Ones, but
look at this. Kieran's all over the back now.
I think he's shaping himself up for the into Stowe, surely, but Jake has got 27% of battery. He's got a little bit more than Kieran, so Kieran, he might call to that bag of tricks that we saw Jacko talking about. That bump and run, is it going to come into play in the last few corners?
Well, he's going to have to make it into the DRS range, which he's done. Good run through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. That is pretty decent. On the back straight, I think Jake has enough ERS, but it'll be that top end speed where you'll see the closing really happen. And Kieran has a look around outside. He'll cut this one back, and it will be all down to the final chicane. Same as we saw last season with Jamie Griffiths and OKK. There's the move. He's pushed him completely off the road, and no penalty for Jake. I think he's going to have it because Kieran's lost the rear end. And for the second time in the JACKOCAR Cup Series, it's a spin and win for the championship. It is Jake O'Sullivan. He deserved it, didn't he, for the whole race? He was fully in control of that. Kieran gave it his best shot, but it just wasn't enough. And it is a second two-time champion in the JACKOCAR Cup Series. It is Jake O'Sullivan, Season 5 and Season 7. Congratulations.
Yeah, mega result there for Jake. Takes his second championship. Kieran, it was a bit of a half-assed move in the end there. I think he telegraphed exactly what he was going to do. Jake just held the middle ground and opened the door enough for Kieran to send down the inside. It would have been a travesty if Jake had ended up on the wrong side of that or in the gravel with it being taken away from him. But yeah, it is Jake that takes the championship, and yeah, once again, massive congratulations to him. Kieran P2, J-Luke will be P3 in the overall standings. Iceman recovers to P6 somehow. Leroy will be your 5th, so the chase finisher finishing 5th, but nevertheless, a fantastic season from Leroy to get himself up from being Kia champion last season to being 5th place overall in the championship the next season is definitely worth a pat on the back.
Yeah, you saw that move coming a mile off, but to be fair to Kieran, he did such a good job to stay in contention right to the very end, those final 13 laps on the mediums, and he's done a brilliant job, but so unfortunate at the very end to just miss out by 3/10. That's what it come down to in the end. And once again, a Championship 5 has been decided with a race win. So that is now 10 of the last 12 have needed a win. So this league keeps on delivering. It's been an excellent season. Jake O'Sullivan, the rightful champion, I think. I got a lot of stick when JACKOCAR was first invented about the way the playoff system works. You're not going to get a true winner. I think we have a true winner on our hands here, and he is now a 2-time champion, Jake O'Sullivan.
Well, this is it. I mean, it was only Season 1 and Season 2, wasn't it, of the Cup Series, where it wasn't first place that decided it. I think it was second place decided both those days. So, you know, you're always having to finish right at the top, and of course winning ever since then. And Jake, he drove the perfect race. Let's say possibly a bit conservative in qualifying, hiding a tiny bit of pace, I'm assuming, because he had that fully in control the whole way. Could easily have been on pole position, but took the lead into turn 1, had that spin after the first safety car, came back though like it never even happened, and it was a dominant performance really in the end to take his second Cup Series championship ahead of Season 6's champion Kieran, who has to sadly give that away, and he'll have a go again for next season. And, normally the results tend to stay on the screen a little bit longer than that, to be honest with you, but they decided to get rid of them very quickly today. So, now we're going straight into qualifying again. Jeez, these guys are really going for it. The lobby's having a bit of a mare. Expect to see some donuts here if anyone's still having a go. But, yeah, I do agree it's a worthy champion for Jake. I don't see anyone else who really, didn't deserve it, but I just didn't think anyone was fast.
And I think the rest of the field will probably agree that Jake has just been the dominant force this season. The equal most amount of wins, most amount of pole positions, most amount of fastest laps, most amount of playoff points. I'm pretty sure he has the most amount of stages won as well. So he has been very much the one to beat. Iceman has said that he just made the wrong strategy call tonight, and that's a shame because we could have had a good fight with. I mean, even if you looked at the gap, the fastest laps between Jake and Kieran was split by 0.03 of a second, and then the gap across the line was 0.3. So those two very, very close together. So well done to Kieran for at least putting up a fight in this one. He has to pass over his trophy, and I think another pretty solid Championship 5, of course overshadowed by the build-up, which is by far better than anything else that they can do in the race. But yeah, a fantastic result for Jake, good result for Kieran. He'll be disappointed he couldn't just bump him a little bit deeper into that gravel, but well, he comes home with a P2. J-Luke, a bit of a nothing race for Jamie, wasn't it? It kind of sums up his season, that just didn't quite have the pace, the speed wasn't there compared to last season and previous seasons, and he ends up in a bit of a lonely third position in the overall standings.
Yeah, and before we say any more, I think we've virtually wrapped it up anyway. Owen, this is your moment whilst we still have 17 viewers. Do you have anything to announce that we already know about?
Yeah, well, obviously you said it throughout qualifying about the new sort of commentary lineup, because I'm no longer going to be the main sort of commentator for this league, because I just simply won't have time for it, because I'm going to have my job at home, I'm going to have uni next year. I mean, you saw it this season, I'm barely going to make the races this season, so how am I going to manage next season and seasons beyond? I will be here sometimes. I'll have the odd appearance, I'm sure, on a Thursday if I'm free and Jacko needs me. You never know, you might see me a bit again. But as a full-time commentator, I mean, I started doing this back, well, even when we were at ILR back in the day, 2018. So, I've been at this for a good five and a half years. So it's a bit weird to be calling it a day. I was a child back then, and now an old man at 21. God knows how these two feel. But that's what I feel. So goodness knows. But yeah, it's been a good fun time. I mean, I must be a combined sort of 12, 13 seasons I've done with this lot. Across both leagues, and obviously it's been good to see this league grow from an odd experiment into actually a very good league format that my brother definitely hasn't taken inspiration for to do his own league with, and that definitely wasn't my idea. It was his idea, trust me, because I had to defend myself still on that one. But yeah, you will see me about still. You never know, I might even appear in the odd Championship 5 build-up or something. But in terms of being the full-time commentator, Jacko is sadly going to have to take on the main commentator role. Who knows how he's going to do it, that one. But I just want to say thank you to everyone, because you've all been very nice to me. It's always been a pleasure to commentate on the drivers, and you've produced, Jacko, a very, very good league indeed.
Now get out.
Thank you very much.
Well, I was going to say thanks to you as well, Gareth, but you're not going to have that now, are you? Go and dye those grey hairs again.
All I can say, two things. One, thank you very much for everything. The last 117 races, but you missed about 100 of them. So thank you for the 17 races you did commentate on, including this one tonight. And secondly, if you do get involved in another Championship 5 build-up, bring your orange suit with you.
Yes. That'll probably be the next time you see me, frankly, in an orange suit. I do still have it in my wardrobe, so it will make another appearance.
Of course you do, because you love it.
Sadly, the goofy hair's gone a little bit. I look like a different man anyway. So, I mean, you might not even recognise me next time you see me, frankly. But, yes.
Oh, no, we will. The accent gives it away.
Yes, the odd accent, which is a bit of a combination of Northern Irish and London, which I keep getting told, which is a bit odd. But, oh well. That is enough rambling from me. It's enough rambling for this season. We've got a summer break to get on to. Mine's going to be a bit longer than the rest, but I hope everyone enjoys it. And, yeah, season 8 just around the corner. Red flags coming into the F1 game. By the looks of it, the fastest JACKOCAR Cup Series grid you've ever seen. And yeah, plenty of exciting things happening. I'll certainly be watching if I can ever actually have the time to. And yeah, Jacko and Gareth will see you next season, as will the rest of the drivers, and you may or may not see me every now and then. But thank you for watching. Congratulations to Jake on his second Cup Series championship. And I never tend to say this, but I feel it's a bit appropriate. Goodbye.